Hello and welcome to your quick third stimulus check and next stimulus package update. So we actually have a lot of progress on negotiations for the next stimulus bill, including that $1,400 stimulus check. And frankly, it seems like they're actually ahead of schedule, if you can believe it or not, as far as negotiations go. So of course, I'm happy to be able to report this on this update that things are pretty darn good right now. So we saw a lot of progress on negotiations both late on Thursday evening and on Friday as far as setting the groundwork for key areas of the next stimulus bill, things like that $1,400 check. Now, just for some context here, the next bill will likely be through that budget reconciliation process. Now, Democrats are kind of looking at a two-track approach here where they have budget reconciliation as a backup plan. No matter what, they can get this thing passed with literally zero Republican support. But it looks like they're still trying to work with Republicans and possibly negotiate some kind of bipartisan deal. But this is getting less and less likely as time passes. But the budget reconciliation process is way more complicated than a normal bill. Normally, a bill can be written by committees and subcommittees, either in the House or the Senate. And then that bill is put together, voted on, boom, you're good to go. Budget reconciliation kind of adds a layer of complexity because everything needs to be related to the federal budget and then proven to have real legitimate effects on the budget, and then approved again, and then passed in the House, and then passed in the Senate. It's just more layers of difficulty. And this is where it's going to be even harder to pass something like increasing the minimum wage, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on in this video. We did see some major progress in key areas though. The first one being the $1,400 stimulus check, the crowd favorite, the stimulus check. The House Ways and Means Committee advanced the stimulus check portion of the bill on Friday. Basically, they put it together and put their stamp of approval on it that yes, this is related to the budget reconciliation and this will be good to go to pass in the House. Now, that hasn't yet happened in the Senate, but we're checking items off the list one by one. The check has a preliminary approval of $1,400 for adults and $1,400 for dependents, and $1,400 for adult dependents. All dependents, $1,400 across the board. Now, the income limits are changed a little bit. This is the item that's been back and forth. Should we more narrowly target the checks? No, we shouldn't. Yes, we should. Back and forth. So it's going to have the same limits as the first and second round of checks with the $75,000 for individual cutoff and the $150,000 for couples cutoff. And both of those have a ramp down. The only difference with the first and second round is the ramp down is going to be more sharp. It's going to have a steeper cliff, and anyone who earns over $100,000 as an individual won't receive any stimulus check, and over $200,000 for couples won't receive any stimulus check. Where in the past, they might have received a very small stimulus check depending on that, ramp down period. We're also looking at the groundwork passed for those $3,000 or $3,600 child tax credits. This is bumping up the current program we have from $2,000 per year per child to either $3,000 or $3,600 depending on the age of the child. And they're also looking at potentially making these monthly payments or bi-monthly payments as kind of a UBI, universal basic income, for families with children under the age of 18, so 17 and younger. If your child is 6 and younger, then you would receive that $3,600 through this credit. So it's a very exciting program for families. There's a lot here for families, especially in the next stimulus bill. And then third, we have the budget reconciliation groundwork laid and passed by the House Ways and Means Committee for the $400 per week unemployment boost. Now, we've been hearing that this would go from March through the end of September. The preliminary passing of this is from March to the end of August. So there's just a slight change there on the unemployment boost end. And then one thing that I mentioned earlier that's not clear if it will pass through the budget reconciliation process is the minimum wage increase to $15 an hour. Now, of course, this has been debated across the board. At first, it looked like it was just going to be a jump right up from $7.25 to $15 an hour. And it looked like it would be more of a gradual ramp up, maybe $1 a year or $1.50 a year from $7.25 to $15 an hour through 2025. And then we heard that we probably won't see any increases while the pandemic is still happening. But now we're hearing that it might not be able to pass through the budget reconciliation process because of the rules of this process. So basically, in order to pass through budget reconciliation, the change needs to have a material effect on the federal budget, and that's what's hard to debate, whether this will have a material effect or not. The debate for it is that by increasing the minimum wage, less people will be below the poverty line, and it'll cost the government less in federal assistance programs. But this will have to be debated back and forth with the parliamentarian as to whether that's even possible or not. So this item's a bit up in the air still, and I know it's a very hotly debated item with opinions, across the board here. But we also have a few other items that have passed the initial budget process. First, we have $20 billion to the National Vaccine Program. We have $170 billion into expenses for school funding and reopening safely. We have $350 billion for state and local government funding. And then, of course, state and local governments will be able to use those funds. And we might even see situations where individual states have more targeted stimulus checks for, either counties or cities or statewide. I know we saw that a few times in the initial CARES Act. So that $350 billion is going to turn into more effective stimulus for businesses and people who are in need. And then what's even more surprising is Nancy Pelosi has said that they're aiming to finish and pass this bill in the House by the end of February, which actually moves up her target timeline just a little bit. She was saying it will be sometime in March. But they're moving that estimate up a little bit because, frankly, things are going pretty well, and there's not a whole lot of debate back and forth when there isn't another party who can, shoot down a bill. But it still would need to pass in the Senate, and because of that, I think the final timeline is still probably mid-March, but it's good that things are getting done a little bit sooner. So as close as we are to saying this deal is done, and I mean we're as close as we've ever been, we still need to recognize a few risks here. Because, I'm not going to clickbait you and entitle this video, deal is done, deal is passed, stimulus checks confirmed, big check mark, bright, bold letters. I'm here to give you kind of the realistic truth and, show the debates on both sides, show the facts, and have a more realistic timeline. So a couple concerns here, some potential roadblocks are first, the House must also comply with the Senate budget rules. So even if this thing gets passed in the House through their committees and subcommittees, we might run into some difficulties in the Senate because they also have budget reconciliation rules. Now, I don't think this is going to be a deal breaker, but we might see things change a little bit, or certain items maybe need to be pulled or put in depending on the budgetary rules. And the second concern, this is the bigger concern, there can't be a single Democratic senator who votes against this. Otherwise, the deal is completely done. And there are two senators who are more on the moderate side who are potential concerns. Now, I don't know how big of a concern this is because, I wouldn't want to be the one person who stands in the way of getting this whole deal done. But of course, it's a concern nevertheless. So again, we're right on the cusp of this thing happening. I personally think it's going to happen. We, of course, can't say with a 100% guarantee, but I'd probably say 90% that we see this thing done. And I'm still going to give it an estimate of around March 11th or March 12th for the deal to get passed, which would mean stimulus checks in your bank account or in your mailbox by either the end of March or sometime early April. And things are looking pretty good for that to happen. Also, I would like to give a thanks to those who became channel members. I just started doing this and I've been surprised by the overwhelming support here from the announcement. Also, I want to give a special thanks to Zachary Feldman and Linda Franklin who joined the higher tier levels. You guys are awesome. If you want to become a channel member, show a little bit more support. You'll have some additional benefits to being a channel member, like private live streams, things like that. You can click that join button next to the subscribe button down below. And also, I would just like to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a profitable day.